Assalamu alaikum to all of my students. Hope you all are fine. Today I am going to take the principles of primary data and secondary data. Primary data and secondary data. First, difference in originality. Difference in originality. As I already discussed it during the introduction of statistics while discussing primary data and secondary data, that primary data is collected by the investigator from the source of origin. As I write down first, primary data collected by the investigator by the investigator from the source of from the source of origin from the source of origin means first hand information as compared to secondary data as compared to secondary data. Secondary data is already in existence as it is collected by some other purpose some other purpose. Maybe this is a different distinction, या we can call difference भी हम कह सकते हैं, a distinction between the primary and secondary data. It is collected by the investigator from the source of origin as compared to secondary data. Secondary data, it is already in existence, as I had given the examples in previous lecture. Published and unpublished sources, magazines, newsletters, newspapers. These are already published, already read by somebody else. Then we read ourselves. Means data which is already in existence, and then we utilize that data we call secondary data. Second, difference in cost. Difference in cost. This is second principle of the principle difference between the primary and secondary data. If we understand this primary data, it is costlier as compared to secondary data, because when investigator collects the primary data, we read, investigator has to collect data from the source of origin. Means investigator has to reach every individual, every society for which he has to collect the given data. Collect the data. As compared to the secondary data, it is not costly. Why? Because it is already published by somebody else. Somebody has already invested in publishing this set data. Now we are utilizing it. Well, it is less costly than primary data. Now I will write down primary data is collected by investigator himself from the source of origin. Means it means more, हम राइट भी कर सकते हैं for understanding, needs more human resource to collect the shared data. To collect the shared data, as compared to secondary data. Secondary data, that's already collected by somebody. Secondary data, as we have already read, it is collected by somebody else. Secondary data is already collected or published, collected by somebody else. Then we utilize it. It is published source. लिख सकते हैं published sources, unpublished source, magazine, newspaper, newsletters, that we treat as secondary data. Meaning less, we have to pay less to get the shared data as compared to primary data. It needed more human resource in order to collect the data as compared to secondary data. As it is already published, we have not used too much human resource to collect the shared data, as work has already done by somebody else. Third one. Suitability. Difference in suitability. Difference in suitability. As we now understood what we call primary data, means primary data that is collected from the source of origin. Primary data collected from the source of origin, means it need not to be adjusted. No need to, you can write down, no need to adjust, no need to adjust this shared data. The shared data. As investigator know and in advance how to collect, how to adjust, because it is done for the specific purpose. We can write down as it is collected, as it is collected for, yes, it is collected for some specific purpose. It is collected for some specific purpose. That's why it is easy to adjust as compared to secondary data. I will write down secondary data. secondary data. As secondary data, it is collected by somebody else, not investigator himself. Data collected by somebody else, not investigator. For some other purpose, not a specific purpose. Means when goal is not oriented, yes, then it becomes a question mark. We can see that after collecting the secondary data, after collecting the publishing data, it need to be adjusted. Where we need it, as compared to primary data. We already know why you collect primary data, because we get exact information. And secondary data, it is collected by somebody else for some other purpose, for some other information to receive. That it is sometimes there it may be doubtful, and it is not collected just like we are collecting the primary data. I think just one line, concluding line I will write down. Then I will conclude this topic. What is the distinction feature, last conclusion line, distinct feature of the primary and secondary data? That is based on degree. Means the data collected by the investigator. I will write down this line. Data collected by the investigator we can call more one investigator from the source of origin, we call primary data. Same data used by the other investigator. Same data used by the other investigator we can call secondary data. These are only degree matters. Primary data and secondary data is classified on the basis of only collection. Last line, on the basis of collection of data. First hand and second hand. That is why I in first lecture I tell you primary data, which is collected by the investigator, and it is a first hand information. As compared to secondary data, it is a second hand information. Utilized by somebody else, then we utilize this data. I think it's enough for today. In next lecture, I will try to take the concept of methods of collecting primary and secondary data. Till that time, hope for the best. Take care. Thanks. Have a nice day.